Did you spend so much time trying to support their inner child that you forgot about yours? The sort of dueling traumas of being in a narcissistic relationship are tricky. Many narcissistic folks don't have easy backstories. Their backstories and histories may include chaos, trauma, neglect, abandonment, loss, invalidation, emotional abuse, and the shame and insecurity and all the stuff that their antagonistic and narcissistic defenses grew to protect. It's real. Many survivors do not have easy backstories. Chaos, trauma, neglect, adversity, etc., etc. You get the idea. And in most people, the antagonistic and grandiose defenses don't emerge as a result of this, but rather trauma responses such as fawning. And you may have had a personality that shaped out as more agreeable as a means of attaching, and simply that was also your temperament, who you were. So you help and you empathize and you care give and you do and you do and you do. Many a narcissistic relationship is the melding of two people with really lousy backstories. And because you both have different kinds of tough histories, the stuff of trauma and adversity happened to both of you. Fragmentation, the development of protective parts and defenses and responses, all cloaking true selves, and then in all of that is the vulnerable inner child. It is very likely that you knew that your partner had a tough backstory, and even as the relationship went on, and even as they betrayed you, or gaslighted you, or manipulated you, or raged at you, you knew this. And knowing this may be how you kept refilling your well of empathy. And empathic people are the ones who are most vulnerable to getting stuck in narcissistic relationships. I actually don't think narcissistic people target empathic folks, but the empathic folks are the ones that get stuck, as do people who are forgivers and fixers and folks who have histories of trauma, folks who have histories of other narcissistic relationships. There's a greater likelihood of getting stuck in these kinds of relationships. Empathic folks, or folks with forgiving hearts, are more likely to make justifications and rationalizations the language of the relationship. And that accelerates the development of the trauma bond. But in this dance of the narcissistic relationship, the odds are that you are both bringing in tough histories. For a variety of reasons, maybe you have been in therapy, maybe you are very empathic, maybe you have learned and studied about trauma and well-being, maybe you are just really kind. You learn their backstory and their triggers, and when they behave badly, you go that extra mile. You contextualize their bad behavior as part of their triggers, their history. You think, oh gosh, this is what their parents did to them. Or they had that terrible loss or trauma. And you basically are trying to care for that scared inner child inside of them, the insecure, shame-filled inner child that is terrified, and perhaps has even grown to express that terror by trying to dominate and be in control and rage. Hell, you may have even gone a step further and hold space for the idea that this scared and angry inner child is why they cheated on you, to get the affection and kindness that they never got from their mother, and that is why they have difficulty getting close and turn to others for attention and quick sex. Sadly, we even congratulate people who do this, who love deeply and see the hurt little person in their partner. And instead of personalizing or reacting back, you truly empathize and see that inner child and care for it. Well, how did that all work out for you? My guess? Not great, at least not in the long term. Listen, I have no doubt that a few of you watching this video, maybe you did have some success stories, that the narcissistic person may even have become more vulnerable with you, and settled down, and regulated more, and perhaps even thanked you. And then, when their bad behavior happened again, maybe you were able to keep doing it and not reacting to their behavior and just reminding yourself that they are just hurt, and hurt people, and all that stuff. And maybe you just got burned out. And maybe a few of you had long-term success with this, though that's not going to be a lot of you. Because the real challenge here is that while you can be that loving person who loves on their inner child, if the behavior doesn't change, how long can you keep that up? And heck, you may even feel guilty when you start thinking, damn, enough, I can't do this anymore, after they have done this over and over and over again. But then you think, but oh no, they suffered, they struggle. I need to see this as their trauma response. You might think, I know what it feels like to be triggered. But my guess is that when your triggered response shows up in this relationship, in most cases, it was not met with any compassion. More likely, it was met with shaming and gaslighting. Now, sadly, it ain't that simple, even for those of us who are therapists and perhaps working with narcissistic clients, because we run the risk of enabling and emboldening the narcissistic person who can just keep throwing tantrums, and we may just feel compelled to soothe and protect their inner child. And here's the challenge. After months, years, decades of caring for the narcissistic person's inner child, let me ask you this. What happened to yours? My guess is, because it was a full-time job to take care of theirs, is that you may not have cared for yours as much, which is ironic because it may be a replay of you not being taken care of as a child, but now you're not taking care of your inner child. In fact, if you had narcissistic parents, you very likely got pulled into what we call a parentified role. You became the parent and you had to care for them. So your pattern is that your child never got cared for, even when you were literally a child, and you had to care for people who should have been capable of taking care of themselves and whose responsibility it was to care for you. In digging deep and over-empathizing with and caring for the narcissistic person's trauma and wounds and inner child, yours got lost. Yours was back in the role of being hidden, of having to step in, to be the grown-up. You brought your world-class A game to being trauma-informed and empathic with your narcissistic partner, but you didn't do it for yourself. The martyr model of relationship in our culture is still fetishized. Oh my goodness, he had such a tough life, and he was so hard on her, but she never stopped loving him, and she just stuck in there and was stoic and never stepped away. And we consider that nonsense a love story, when in fact, it is simply a telling of the subjugation of narcissistic abuse. And that's not a love story. That's a tragedy. Sadly, the way we tell love stories in our culture means that we are often setting people up for subjugation, especially love stories that involve people who have had rough backstories. We are taught that we need to show grace and forgive and be understanding, but that doesn't work when it's a one-way street. It is unsustainable to be the perfect trauma therapist, partner, inner child babysitter when you yourself are not being protected, seen, heard, cared for, or empathized with. And frankly, even if those things were happening, you were being cared for and empathized, you can't be your partner's therapist. And sadly, narcissistic people are manipulative enough to know that they can pull out their tale of woe as a deflection tactic to shut any pushback or complaints or needs you have, or even as part of gaslighting. Now keep in mind that through all of this, they knew your backstory too. And we're likely not contextualizing your behavior through the lens of all the tough things that you went through in your life. Now, raise your hands if the narcissistic person ever said to you, hey, hon, I get it. I get why you got angry about that text I got. You didn't feel safe. Your childhood wasn't safe. And you tell me how I can help you feel safe. I'm guessing very few of you raised your hands. Nope, that's not what you got. Instead, you got a gaslighted word salad tirade about how you were paranoid and crazy and they could do better. That's not really good for your inner child, is it? To be in one of these relationships means really, definitively, that you are not cared for. And it also means that you are really having to care for them. And because of those shared trauma and adversity histories, you may go above and beyond and hold back or tell yourself, I can't be mad at them. They've been through a lot. It's their inner child. They are scared. More than one thing can be true at a time. You can be mad at them. Sure, they may have this injured inner child. And yes, this is a one-way relationship. Being in reality and recognizing that this sucks. And sure, their story sucks too. But if they aren't trying to address it and do the work and work on responding differently, and instead what they're doing is leaning on you to reparent them, that is not a relationship. That's a residential treatment center. And my guess is that that is not what you signed up for. I get that the moral injury and the grief and the guilt can make it hard to step away. But take a hard look at this relationship, because this is what it is. And it may mean that you stop giving 200% of you to their inner child and start digging into yours and giving that little person inside of you some love. Thanks again.